අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Sunday the 19th of March 2023. Planning the future. 25-year plan to develop Sri Lanka by 2048 rolled out, says President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
This is a 25-year match. This is not like the Royal Tournament which is played in 3 days, or some of the other school matches that are played in 2 days.
Temporary rain. Terms of over 300 local councils end tonight. Government officials in charge. Self-sufficient. USAID firmly believes Sri Lanka can be a country with food surplus.
In fact, Sri Lankan agriculture has amazing potential to support not only itself, but its neighbors as well.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරමක්.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබා ගත හැක.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that a 25-year plan to make Sri Lanka a prosperous nation by 2048 has already been implemented, and added that it can only be achieved with the commitment of the current youth. At the 32nd Interact District Conference, the head of state said that the measures taken by the government during the last 7 months had created economic stability in the country, making Sri Lanka no longer a bankrupt nation. Further, President Wickremesinghe also said that the 25-year plan will ensure that Sri Lanka will not have poverty and will comprise employment for its people.
The 32nd Interact District Conference was held at Temple Trees this morning under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
We are now in a situation we will no longer be declared a bankrupt nation, but a nation that can restructure its debts. That will happen in the next few days. Now what we are doing at the moment and the results of the IMF Board of Directors only gives us a breathing space where they will say that we are no longer bankrupt and that we can restructure the debt. So all the monies that we had to pay this year, we will be given at least another, I hope, 10 years to repay it. The rupee has now gone up to over 300 and has been remained over 300, going up to 300 and even 80, coming down. Once we have this agreement with the IMF, the rupee will come down, but it won't come down to 200 or 185. That has to happen gradually. So we have a period of stabilization, and that is 4 years. With the IMF, they've given targets. We've agreed that the budget will not be a deficit, that the budget will have a surplus by 2026, and that we will then be able to borrow and to pay back the monies we borrow. Now that is not a very good situation, because once we stabilize the economy and we can restructure the debts, we must also find means of paying off all our debts and coming to a situation where we have a surplus in the country, that every year. So to win this encounter, stabilizing the economy is not enough. You must then make the economy grow. And unless you make the economy grow, we will go down again. As far as I am concerned, my aim now is also not only to lay the groundwork to restructure our debt, to stabilize our economy so that we can repay our debts in 10 years' time, but to build a new economy in which we will be prosperous and we will be able also to become a developed economy, giving a better future for those who will be living in the next 40, 50 years. When I lay that down, I need a team for that match. That is going to be the big match. For that game, my team is going to be all of you all. What we will lay down now is a 25-year plan. So by 2049, we'll be a prosperous nation, that we will have no debt, and more than that, each of you will be having at least earning a few $1,000s a month or maybe more. Some of you are thinking of going abroad and not being in Sri Lanka. Some of you want to go out and work and come back. All I want to say to all those who are thinking of going abroad is don't abandon the country. In the next 2 years, you will see the country developing, and then you will see that you have a future. So certainly go out, certainly study, but remember to come back. Because this is a 25-year match. This is not like the Royal Tomian, which is played in 3 days, or some of the other school matches that are played in 2 days. Second innings will be much longer than the first innings. First innings is only 4 years. Second innings may be 21 years after that. So this is the game that we have to play. Now that game we must play to win. We must become the most prosperous country in our region.
Now, the term of office of 340 local councils across the country will end tonight, making government officials of the respective institutions and the municipal commissioners the head of such institutions. Now, the local councils will operate in this manner until the local government elections are held on the 25th of April. Following the local government election on the 10th of February 2018, the term of office of 340 local councils started on the 20th of March of the same year. Due to a separate election being held only for the Alpitia Local Council, its official term started in October 2018. Even though the term of these institutions was due to end on the 20th of March last year, the subject minister took steps to extend the terms of office of all those institutions by 1 year. As such, the term of all 340 local councils will come to an end by midnight tonight. Since the minister lacks the power to extend the term of office any further, and since there has been no election of members through voting, government officials will now be in charge of the local councils. Accordingly, the power of 29 municipal councils will be under the municipal commissioners, and the powers of 36 municipal councils and 275 local councils will be under the secretaries of those institutions. However, the term of office of the members of the Alpitia Pradesh Sabha is scheduled to end on October. The provincial councils and the Ministry of Local Government have already notified the heads of local government bodies to take steps to return their government vehicles used by them as the official term ends. Although April 25th has been fixed as the date for the local government elections, several parties point out that there is uncertainty regarding the holding of the local government elections in view of the current situation. Now, the FAO and the USA delivered 36,000 tons of triple superphosphate fertilizer to the Ministry of Agriculture as the first TSP shipment to arrive in Sri Lanka since 2023 for immediate distribution to all paddy farmers across the country. Addressing the event, Sri Lankan Country Director of the USAID, Gabriel Grau, says that Sri Lankan agricultural sector has the great potential in supporting not only itself but also the neighbouring countries via the creation of a food surplus.
Organization of the United Nations in Sri Lanka delivered 36,000 metric tons of triple superphosphate fertilizer to the Ministry of Agriculture today for immediate distribution to all paddy farmers across the country. The fertilizer shipment was procured from USAID funding, is the first TSP shipment to arrive in Sri Lanka since 2021 and will provide essential nutrients to paddy crops cultivated by over 1 million paddy farmers in the upcoming yellow cultivation season from April to August and beyond.
In the coming weeks, 36,000 metric tons of triple superphosphate TSP will be distributed free of charge to all paddy farmers in the entire country, more than 1 million farmers. This brings the total USAID-funded fertilizer, TSP, and urea procured through FAO to over 45,000 metric tons. And it will mark the first time in 3 seasons that Sri Lankan farmers will have all 3 types of fertilizer for its crop growth. This fertilizer will help farmers to improve rice production during the planting season and help you meet the country's food needs. U.S. assistance is nothing new between Sri Lanka and the United States. We have invested more than $2 billion to support Sri Lanka's agriculture, education, health, environment, water, sanitation, infrastructure, governance, business, and humanitarian needs. And we will cover all these things through the entire demand. This TSP fertilizer that has just arrived will cover all your TSP needs for the entire Yala season and some of the next Maha season as well. So we are committed to seeing Sri Lanka increase economic opportunity and growth towards stability and prosperity.
What about after you are recovered from this crisis? How do you ensure that agriculture is sustainable and can take off? USAID firmly believes that Sri Lanka can be a country with a huge food surplus. In fact, Sri Lankan agriculture has amazing potential to support not only itself, but its neighbors as well. But it will take a lot of courage, a lot of local leadership, as well as long-term commitment to make that change. A market-based, highly efficient agricultural sector is what this country needs to strive towards, and we are here to help you achieve that.
Now starts the test of actually distributing TSP to the farmers in the field. And that, I think, starting tomorrow, TSP distribution will be done to the farmers. And I hope that will be the start of a robust Yala season and the recovery of the agriculture sector in this country.
Now, two minor tremors with magnitudes of 3 and 2.6 on the Richter scale jolted the eastern and southern parts of Sri Lanka within the past 24 hours. The Geological Survey and Mines Bureau of Sri Lanka said that they're analysing the recent earthquakes in the boundary between the Eurasian plate and the Indo-Australian plate on which Sri Lanka is situated in an attempt to discern its potential impact on the island. However, senior lecturer of the geoengineering at the University of AdaDerana, Professor Deni Bandara Amarasinghe, says that creating fears due to such jolts is unnecessary since the geological location of Sri Lanka is safe. Two minor tremors have been reported in two locations in the past 24 hours within the country. This occurred in a backdrop where several minor tremors were reported from the Munaragara, Vallavaya and Buttal areas of the island during the past month. The first minor tremor with a magnitude of 2.6 on the Richter scale jolted Palatupanna, Kirinda at a depth of 10 kilometers at around 6:46 p.m. last evening. Meanwhile, the second minor quake at a magnitude of 3 was experienced in Gomarakandavala of the Trincomalee area at a depth of more than 10 kilometers at around 3:30 am this morning.
දැනට ශ්‍රී ලංකාව තුළ ක්‍රියාත්මක වන භූකම්පනමාන 4හිම මේ භූකම්පනය වාර්තා වුණත් අප වෙත කිසිදු ආකාරයේ පැමිණිල්ලක් මහ ජනතාව විසින් අපට දැනුවත් කිරීමක් කරේ නැහැ. මේ භූකම්පන අධ්‍යයනය කිරීමේදී අපිට සඳහන් කරන්න පුළුවන් කාරණාව තමයි ඊයේ දවස පුරා ශ්‍රී ලංකාව පිහිටි ඉන්දු ඕස්ට්‍රේලියානු තැටිය සහ ඊට ඉහළින් පිහිටි ආසියානු තැටිය අතර මායිම ඔස්සේ රික්ටර් මාපංකයේ 5.4 අතර භූකම්පන රැසක් සිදු වුණා. ඒ සිදු භූකම්පන වලදී නිකුත් වූ ශක්තියෙහි යම්කිසි නිදහස් වීමක් ලංකාව හරහා ඒ භූතලයේ ඔස්සේ සිදුවාද කියන කාරණාව සම්බන්ධව අපි අවධානය යොමු කරලා තියෙනවා. ඇත්තටම මේ ඇති වූ භූකම්පන නිසා යම්කිසි හානියක් සිදු වේ කියලා අනියත බියක් ඇති කරගත යුතු නැහැ.
However, geoengineering experts at University of AdaDerana says that creating fears due to such jolts is unnecessary.
ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ජනතාව තේරුම් ගන්න අපේ පොළව ඉතාම වාසනාවන්ත පිහිටීමක තියෙන්නේ. අපි ගොඩක් දුරයි භූතැටි මායිම් වලට. ඉතින් භූමිකම්පා කේන්ද්‍ර ඇති වෙන්නේ නැහැ ලංකා ගොඩබිමේ. ඒ නිසා අනිසිබියක් ඇති කරගන්න එපා. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ජනතාව පොළව හෙල්ලුණාට අපිට විනාශකාරී කිසිවක් වෙන්න කේන්ද්‍රයක් ඇති වෙන තත්ත්වයක් ඇත්තේ නැහැ.
The Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation, Nimal Siripala de Silva, said that the law schools in Sri Lanka are responsible for ensuring the quality of their students in order to improve the quality of justice in the country. Addressing the General Sir John Kotalavala Memorial Mooting Competition organised by the KDU, the former Justice Minister also said that restoration of discipline, which is currently moving away from our society, should start from the country's university system itself.
General Sir John Kotalavala Memorial Mooting Competition, organised by the Moot Court and Debating Society of General Sir John Kotalavala Defence University, was held recently under the patronage of Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation, Attorney at Law Nimal Siripala de Silva. Participants of the Apit University emerged as the champions of the competition, while KDU emerged as the runners-up.
In order to improve the quality of justice, it's not only lawyers, there must be a set of good judges. So therefore, I am sure all other institutions in Sri Lanka will bear in mind the quality of the students that are going out from your institutions. They have to be not just get the paper qualification only. In order to become a good lawyer, you need to disseminate the information, evidence, and you need a lot of dedication. So that quality you have to inculcate in your career. Recently, I have been appointed by His Excellency the President to be the chairman of the committee to propose the necessary amendments to the custom ordinance in order to ensure that there are no delays in port in clearing the goods, etc. So therefore, the legal profession is a profession where you are being given a greater horizon for you. A lawyer, you can do many other things in life. Any profession you can fit into that profession, being a lawyer. You can have very good academic education. But the discipline which is moving out of our society, we have to restore. So that has to be started from the university education itself.
And we'll be back with more news right after this short commercial break. Stay with us.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Welcome back. Now, the development economist Professor Jayati Ghosh is of the opinion that the bailout package of the International Monetary Fund makes no macroeconomic sense, as the policies will exacerbate the frustrations of the people and small and medium-scale businesses throughout the imposition of various rate hikes. She made these remarks during a special discussion with Indivari Amawatta at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24. Further expressing his remarks during the panel discussion, Senior Professor in Economics at the University of Colombo, Professor Sirima Laberatna believes that the country's only way forward lies within the creation of an investment-friendly environment.
But are you suggesting, Professor Aberatna, if we do not comply with IMF expectations to meet the requirements as a prerequisite for the IMF bailout arrangement, that there is any solution for Sri Lanka in the interim?
Going with the IMF program would help us to achieve a sustainable solution because of the nothing other than this improving the international image of Sri Lanka, so that we would be able to attract investment and then to work on that. But there too we have a long way to go reforming our policies, regulatory mechanism to make this country an investment center. Only with that we will come out of the crisis, and not with the IMF program.
I'd also like to ask you, what do you think we could do in terms of meeting those IMF requirements? I think you pointed out where Sri Lanka missed in expanding the tax base to other factors, but there are requirements that the government has to meet in terms of fulfilling IMF bailout package prerequisite.
Why I like the IMF program basically is that Sri Lanka does not have a good track record in adopting a consistent policy package, regulatory reform package, and that's why, because for the last 25-30 years we didn't have any reform package, purposefully and bold reform package. We had only twice in our history, 77 and 89, and after that we abandoned our reform package. We were feeling good, and even people asked, okay, prices have to be reduced, and the government promised, okay, we will reduce the fuel prices, we will give you electricity at low cost, and all these things we have agreed with our politicians. So these are basically a political problem. So all these problems got accumulated to this point. Whether it is this government or any other government, they have to respond to accumulated problems. So that obviously they are going to be a problem because the public has to fasten their belt. But at the same time, I would say that there is another side to these things, that is the reform side, and reform side should come in to make things easier for. But I also know that IMF does not consider the political repercussions, social repercussions of their program, and how public is going to respond to that. And if things go worse, of course, there's a 50-50 chance and that you would fall in this side or the other side.
Let's just also try to bring comparison from other nations that not just have fallen into further crisis, but also other countries that were supported by an IMF program, and what they did different and how different their situation was for them to benefit from an IMF program.
When they work is when they are part of a strategy that the government has elaborated on its own with broad political support. That is not the case today. You have an unelected government that more or less reflects the same interest groups that were in the previous government, against which there was a very large people's movement. To impose on a citizenry that thought that they had managed to actually undo some of the damage that their political leaders were doing on them. And I think corruption was only one of the concerns. It was really economic mismanagement. To follow on that with equally brutal, if not more brutal policies, and tell them that, well, now you have to tighten your belt, when their belts have already been tightened, when they know that the elites are getting away with it, when illicit financial flows continue, there is no wealth tax to speak of, export receipts are still not being repatriated, all of these these things are known. That is a recipe for massive unrest. It cannot generate growth. It can only generate greater suffering. What is even worse is that because it doesn't generate growth, it's not going to attract the foreign private investment that is expected. What you would get is people coming and buying up your companies at bargain basement prices, fire sales of domestic assets. That's not what you want. You want productive assets being generated. Think what you do when you raise electricity prices and all of these prices. You raise the costs for small and medium businesses. They're the ones who are doing the exporting. Their costs go up. And the only way you can counter that is with a further devaluation of the currency, which is now going to be a market-determined exchange rate. And then that market-determined exchange rate will generate further cost inflation. I mean, it is a strategy that makes absolutely no macroeconomic sense.
And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. A pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.